got recording too. Hi, Lisa. Hi, April. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the wonderful world of hot flash.
You look like you're having a hot flash.
Oh, thanks so much. That's just what I wanted to hear.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't mind them in the middle of winter because I go outside in 2 or 10 degree weather and I think it's fabulous. Like I'll sit in my car while it's waiting to warm up thinking, oh my gosh. And Rick, my husband Rick stopped asking me what's it like outside because I say it's great. He's like,
it's great no matter what.
I'm like, not to me. That's good. It's only 7 more years of this.
Oh, really? Is that how long? Okay. Perfect.
Well, perimenopause is 5 to 7 years, and menopause is 5 to 7 years.
Wonderful.
And we asked the doctor, my husband said to the doctor, he goes, what can I do? He goes, pray a lot and find a man cave.
Oh,
and that's really what he does. Seriously, well, you go from 0 to witch in 3 seconds. I said, it's nothing you've done. I love you, but get away from me. And he knows to go downstairs. And he has a music studio downstairs. And he knows what to do.
Admit Margaret's here. Awesome. So Nicola is here with us already, and she has a little bit of a limited time because she's got another engagement. So I want to make sure we make the most of our time with her while she's here.
Can I say anything? Because I have to leave at 3:30 no matter what, because we actually have an engagement too tonight. Can I just do a quick housekeeping that I just want to say there's no book club next month? Because people were asking me, and I decided not to do a book club for people here for October because of TudorCon, but we're doing it again in November and December because people were asking me what the book was, and I didn't get a chance to answer them back.
Perfect.
So,
all right, cool. Sorry. So, awesome. So, Nicola Tallis, thank you so much for being at our little book club here with your book, Uncrowned Queen. I really loved this book, and I'm so happy to see Lady Margaret getting some attention. So I have a couple of questions myself to ask you, but then if other people have questions and they want to pop in as well, you know, feel free to do that. Lisa, when you do these other book clubs, do you mute everybody by default and while the author's talking, or we'll just all be quiet?
We just all keep it. I keep it open because I basically tell people to come with their own questions. I let the author, my thing would be like, Nicola, you know, how did you come up with the book? What was your inspiration? What did people think of it? And Heather, I'm so happy that you're doing this and I get to be a participant. I'm so excited.
That's funny. But
yeah, it's just personally easier for me not to keep muting and unmuting people.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just do that. So, Nicola, you've written a number of other books, which I also have enjoyed, so I'm excited to finally talk to you. So what, you tend to look at women who sometimes maybe have popular assumptions about them, and I've noticed that you tend to question a lot of the different assumptions about some of the women that we hear about. So I want to talk specifically about Lady Margaret and how she's seen in specific historical fiction dramas these days. But before that, why did you decide to write about her?
Do you know, it was actually my editor's idea because what happened was I had a fixed idea of another book that I really wanted to write, and she said, okay, that's great, we can run with that, but why don't you think about Lady Margaret Beaufort? And she asked me to write a list of pros for each of these books, and she was going to go off and speak to the sales team at my publisher and see what the vibe was, and I was so convinced that they would come back and be like, no, Nicola, we're going to go with your idea, definitely. And so I was really quite surprised when they came back and said, no, the overwhelming response is that we want Lady Margaret Beaufort. And I remember at first being a bit, I don't know, I was a bit overawed, I think, because I, like lots of people, I'd read The White Queen, I'd watched The White Queen, I'd read The Red Queen, and so I kind of, I know better than to take historical fiction as fact, but I did kind of have this, I don't know, I was kind of a bit scared of approaching Margaret as a subject to begin with, and yeah, so it was a huge challenge for me. It was definitely my most challenging book because of the fact that there was all this stuff in popular culture about Margaret, and she'd been depicted in a certain way. And yeah, but it was great. It was by far, I think, my my greatest challenge of a book, but also the one that I enjoyed the most as well.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I want to get into her life and stuff too, but this whole perception that we have as the mother-in-law from hell and all of that kind of stuff, that's a relatively recent phenomenon, isn't it? Or do you know much about how that developed? Like, that's like a last couple generations sort of thing, isn't it?
I think so, but I do think that, you know, if you see, if you look at some of the older biographies of Margaret or some of the biographies of Elizabeth of York, it's kind of almost, it's almost kind of taken as fact that she was the mother-in-law from hell, and it's sort of written off in a couple of lines. And actually, you know, that's probably one of the questions that I'm asked about the most is, you know, is it true that she was the mother-in-law from hell? And really, if you go back and look at the evidence and the sources, there's only one source that says that Elizabeth and Margaret didn't get on that well, and there's plenty of other evidence that suggests that they had a really warm and really friendly relationship. So, but I think it makes, you know, it makes for better TV, doesn't it? If there's this rift between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, it makes great drama, doesn't it? So I think it's sort of been a popular theme.
Yeah, I suppose. It's so unfair.
Yeah, it is.
I'm glad that
you actually changed my entire view of Margaret Beaufort. No kidding.
Oh, really?
It really did. I went in with such a straight perception of what she was, and I actually wrote down, I'm like, literally was like, during your book, and I'm like, if you would ask, loves music, loves fashion, loves books, loves hunting, loves betting, loves card playing, I would have said Anne Boleyn. I would have never in a million years thought Margaret Beaufort. And it honestly, you really did change I did a total 180 of my perception of her.
Oh,
and how I will view her, honestly, going forward reading things.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. That's really good.
I think she was the mother-in-law from hell. I honestly thought she was like that her entire life. You know, like very, very stoic, very ambitious. I don't think the woman ever smiled, you know.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that it seemed like about her is that she was such a survivor. And that's one thing too, Lisa, you talked about the ambition. I think a lot of, especially that the Red Queen and the White Queen and all that stuff kind of paints her as someone who was in the background the whole time, like ever since her son was born, thinking about how is he going to become king. And like that she's scheming all during Edward IV's reign and all like the whole time. Like that wasn't like, can you tell me about what, it seems like she was more about just surviving and keeping him alive and making peace with whatever was going on at the time. And then she saw an opportunity. Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I just have to say hi to Susie because I've just seen her pop up and I know, hey Susie.
Hi Nick, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great, I am little over halfway through the book.
Oh, okay.
And I'm enjoying it very, very much.
Oh.
And I have to say that as far as an informational book, it's not all bogged down with dates and facts and everything. You kept it very, very interesting.
Oh, thank you. That's good.
I'm enjoying it a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, Heather and Lisa.
Hi, Susan.
Can I ask you, Nicola? Because one thing that stood out, and I'm going to forget if I don't ask it now, was she a princess? Because I actually marked the page in the book where the bishop had spoken to her and actually said about, you know, her son was like Moses. Oh, when he said the outcome of Margaret's labor, like Moses, was wonderfully born and brought into the world by the noble princess's mother. I know Edmund was the half brother, but she never used the title princess. She always used like countess, and that really threw me off. And I wasn't sure, like, was she considered a princess, and that's why she was the uncrowned queen, or I wasn't sure.
No,
I've never heard her called princess before.
Yeah, that's a really good question. No, she was never officially titled or styled as a princess. But it is something that when Henry VII became king, suddenly in all official documents, Margaret does suddenly start to begin to be styled as princess, and you know, everyone refers to her as the noble princess, the noble and excellent princess. But the fact that the book was called Uncrowned Queen was actually more based on the fact that when Henry VII becomes king, she is basically the most powerful woman in England and becomes a queen in all but name. So that's where that comes from.
I appreciate that, because I never knew she was known as the noble princess in like writings or anything.
Yeah, like when you go through, so I spent quite a lot of my time researching in Cambridge, and which is where a lot of Margaret's documents are stored, and you look at all of her household accounts, and they all start by, you know, saying these are the accounts basically of the most noble and excellent Princess Margaret. And that's, I kind of played around with that as a title for a while. I really wanted to, for a while, I wanted to have something like the noble and excellent princess, but I don't know, it just doesn't quite, it wasn't punchy enough. So yeah, we left that. But sorry, I realized I didn't answer this question.
No,
I'm sorry about that. So to return to your question, no, you were absolutely right. I think when Margaret's son was born in 1457, there were no thoughts of or ambitions at that time of a throne for Henry. You know, England was embroiled in the Wars of the Roses at that time, so Margaret's focus was very much on trying to ensure that this son of hers was kept safe, and you know, that was her main consideration. And I think that was also her main consideration when it came to choosing a husband for herself, because of course Henry's father had died 2 months prior to his birth. So I think she was very much, when she married Henry Stafford a year after Henry's birth, I think he was chosen very much with not only Margaret's interests in mind, but also Henry's, and thinking about, you know, who else would you know, be on hand to support Henry. So yeah, there was no question of a throne for Henry during his childhood, and all of Margaret's hopes for him you know, were very much in line with making sure that he was protected. So when the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471 resulted in disaster for the Lancastrians, and you know, Henry VI's heir Edward of Lancaster was slain there, and then Henry VI was murdered in the Tower of London. Henry Tudor, of course, flees abroad, and some contemporary sources say, and I think that they're probably quite accurate, that this was all done at Margaret's urging. And I think, again, yeah, this was very much her sort of trying to get him out of the country, realising that with Henry VI and his heir dead, Henry may potentially, you know, be seen as a figurehead for dissenters of the Yorkist king, Edward IV. And it was very clear that when Edward IV was king, again, Margaret's hopes were very much aimed at reconciliation with the House of York for her son, and you know, she was trying to negotiate with Edward IV so that Henry could return home. And we know, of course, that she came very, very close, and that Edward drafted a pardon. But this is like something out of a movie, isn't it? Because he drafted the pardon and then he dies. So super unlucky for Margaret. And you can imagine she must have been really devastated, because at that point, you know, she hadn't seen her son for years, more than a decade. She's trying desperately to bring him home, and she's this close, and it's suddenly all taken away from her. It's just heartbreaking. And I think she probably very early into the reign of Richard III realised or recognised that Richard was quite unpopular, and it was then I think that she saw this opportunity for Henry and thought, okay, well, this is great, we can set him up as the Lancastrian opposition here, but again recognised that his claim alone wasn't strong enough to stake a bid to the English throne, so comes up with the genius idea of marrying Henry to Elizabeth of York. And I think it's really clever, it's really smart, and I think again it just sort of shows she was such a practical woman, and hugely intelligent, but also thinking very practically about opportunities for her son, and how she can sort of do the best for him. And I think that was very much her she sort of found the golden nugget, if you like.
Mm-hmm. And just thinking about her relationship with him and all the, like, how much he trusted her. Can you talk a little bit? That's where she was the uncrowned queen, because she was such a powerful person. Can you talk a little bit about kind of like what her role was then?
Yeah, I mean, she was almost like an advisor to Henry in many ways. From the moment that Henry became king, Margaret was just this constant presence by Henry's side. And it's remarkable if you think about it and think about how close they were, again, sort of considering that they hadn't spent a lot of time together at all prior to this. But they did have this really extraordinary bond, and it almost seemed like time didn't matter. And we know that certainly for the first 10 years of Henry's reign, Margaret was always there, always at the forefront of events. Her name was always listed alongside that of Elizabeth of York, almost as if they're one person, really. And she was always participating in court ceremonial. We know that in some of the royal palaces, she and Henry had interjoining apartments. So again, this really suggests this huge desire from Henry VII to keep his mother close to him, because she wouldn't have had those apartments if he hadn't wanted her to be there. So I think they were in very close contact, and first and foremost were mother and son. So first and foremost, this is a relationship that's based on true love, certainly from Margaret's part, but also that I think Henry recognised that his mother was a woman of great ability, and he really trusted her judgment, and he knew that she was intelligent and very, very capable. And quite how far she was involved in politics and Henry's policies is difficult to know, but I think certainly he had a great deal of time for her and a lot of respect for her opinions.
Building on that, I have a question. When you say about the intelligence, her abilities, how wonderful she was, why her? I mean, that's such an enigma in that time, that so many women didn't have all those talents. Was she born that way? Did she get a better education? What made her stand out or to get all those abilities and knowledge?
I think it was a product of the circumstances and the situation that she was thrown into. I think from a very, very young age, she'd obviously been forced to grow up very, very quickly by being married at 12 and pregnant, very early on, and becoming a mother at 13. And not just that, but, giving birth in a country that was rife with all this political tension and upheaval and war. And I think certainly watching all of the upheaval that was going on around her showed Margaret the importance of pragmatism, and I think she learned some lessons very early on about the importance of keeping your head down when you needed to, saying the right things when you needed to, and you know, and whilst always, I think she was always a very, very loyal woman to her own house, and we know that she, you know, to her dying day, she greatly revered Henry VI and his memory. But I think she also she wasn't stupid, and she knew when not to back a losing horse, and she knew when to bend the knee, so to speak, which is what she did with Edward IV. And I think, you know, because of the war that was going on around her, it just taught her some very valuable lessons about life, really, and definitely helped to shape her and her practical abilities. So I think, yeah, if the Wars of the Roses hadn't been going on at that time, would she have been a different person and a different character? Who knows? But I think when I talk about her intelligence, I think she was intelligent, but I think she wasn't fortunate enough to benefit from a great education in the same way that Elizabeth I, for example, did. Okay. She didn't have those sorts of opportunities, and we know that later in life she really regretted the fact that she hadn't been given the chance to learn Latin more. But certainly by the standards of her day, you know, she spoke French. She you know, she was translating text from French into English and vice versa. So she certainly had a lot more opportunities, I suppose, and ability than some other women were given at that time. But yeah, I think sort of her practicality is the thing that really makes her stand out, definitely.
Nick, I think what you said about when, you know, by the time she was 18, she saw so much. I think that's what helped her with, after the War of the Roses, on, you know, negotiating, you know, her son's marriage to Elizabeth of York. It's like, you know what, she would have seen it. But I gotta say, it's like, two things stood out. Why was Henry, I'm gonna say, farmed out to Jasper? You know, Margaret was married to Stafford. Why couldn't she stay with him? Like, she's, you know, Henry stay with her. And was the baby named Owen? This is why I hate history. It's like, I want to know, was the baby really named Owen? But it surprised me that, like, A, she didn't marry Jasper, and that B, when she was already married, why couldn't she keep her son? You know, why did he have to be Jasper's ward when she was settled and married?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a great deal of evidence on that point, so we can only speculate. And my suspicion, I mean, why didn't she marry Jasper? Whether she felt that they were too closely related, I think there's a strong possibility of that. And I think that she also felt that she could be better protected by the Stafford family, because Henry Stafford's father was the Duke of Buckingham, and, you know, really, really hugely important. So I think that was a huge element in her decision, for sure. Who knows? Maybe Jasper didn't want to marry her at that time, because he doesn't actually marry
at all.
So
after Henry became king, didn't he? He married.
Okay.
Yeah, so he doesn't marry till much later to
okay, I was wondering, it's like,
yeah, so I mean, who knows, that might or might not be applicable or relevant. And as to why Margaret didn't retain Henry's custody, again, we can only really speculate, but I think that she perhaps felt that Henry would be better protected by Jasper.
Your book also made me think of Edmund different. You know, the huge controversy about, he consummated the marriage when she was 12, but from the point of view in the book is, and now I see it, is like, it was right after St. Albans. It's like, you know what, maybe they needed an heir, you know, because, you know, it's like, it was just a political move and not just like, okay, he was a lech. but I mean, maybe he was a lech too, but you know, because they literally had just, what was it, 9 days after the conflict ended, they got married or something like that. So it's like, you know, it would have made political sense at the time to try and get some kind of, like, you know, an heir close to the king.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also though, from Edmund's perspective, we have to remember that Margaret was an extremely wealthy heiress. She had all of these lands and all of this money, which had all come to her when her father died, when she was just a year old, and she was the sole legitimate child. So her wealth and her lands were hugely attractive. But of course, if she had died and the couple hadn't had any children, then Edmund wouldn't have been entitled to any of that wealth and any of those lands. So what's the answer? Well, you get her pregnant, you have a child, and suddenly you've got an interest in all of that. So it does make sense on so many levels.
I gotta tell you, I feel so sorry for Clarence. He just reminds me of the hapless brother who's chasing fame, chasing fortune, and just is out of reach. And I know he was a jerk, but I just felt so sorry for him. Just like he just never reached what he wanted, like his brother.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the men back then were jerks. And had their noses. Every book I read back then, it's like I always say, the men are jerks. It's like, oh my gosh. But he just seemed like a very hapless jerk because it was like, it's right in front of him and he can't reach it.
He just never learned. That was the thing with him. You kept slapping his wrists and he just never learned.
Nicola, I just wanted to interrupt to ask you how much time we have with you, because I know you need to cut it a little short.
I've probably got about 20 minutes.
Okay.
I do need to do this. I got the time wrong of the picnic, I realized, and I'm so sorry. But I'm so happy I got to be, and I'm so sorry about the 1 o'clock thing. I apologize for that. That was my fault.
No problem, Lisa.
So, Nicola, it was so nice meeting you. Thank you so much for your book. I am honestly recommending it to quite a few people.
Oh, thank you so much.
My husband knows who Margaret Beaufort is first of all, because I'm a nut with Tudor, but he's like, oh yeah, it's one of the dead king's mother. I'm like, okay, you're good. But thanks so much, everybody. Keep going.
So Lisa, you're off, right? Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so cool. What if anybody else has any other questions? please join in. Otherwise, I'll just keep asking questions. I wanted to know more about the colleges that she founded, because she was really involved in that, and like how personally involved she was. I love the story about her telling somebody not to hit too hard.
Yeah.
When he was punishing this.
Yeah. So yeah, she founded Christ's College in Cambridge in gosh, my mind's gone blank. 1505. I think that's right. Sorry if I've got that wrong. My brain just has temporarily gone blank. And St. John's in Cambridge was founded in 1511, 2 years after she died. So she left all of the money for that foundation, and she bequeaths plate and things in her will to help fund it and help to support it. But it's really with Christ's that she was more personally involved in, because that one's founded during her lifetime. And I think that was one of my highlights actually when I was researching the book, is when I was working in Cambridge, and all of the documents are housed in St. John's, which I sort of felt that perhaps they should have been at Christ's, seeing as that was, actually founded during her lifetime, but it's still. And I was looking through all of these accounts and looking at what Margaret was spending her money on, and you can see, it's just amazing. You can see all of these pages that, all of them Margaret signed herself, every single page, and you can see all these payments that she's making to Christ that show you just how involved she was. And yes, she wanted to know every last detail, and she was really passionate about these foundations. And I think that partially that was because even though, as I said, she did have the opportunity to have a reasonably good education, I think that she perhaps didn't get the education that that she perhaps would have chosen, or that she would have wanted. And so I think that that's why she was really passionate about giving other people the opportunity to have a good education. And yeah, it's amazing. You can see all of you know, this wonderful plate that she purchased for Christ's, and you know, on one occasion when she visited, someone gave her a cake. And yeah, like you said, there's this story that one day she was looking out of the window at the college at Christ's, and she saw one of the schoolmasters beating one of the students, and she supposedly shouted out, "Lente, lente," which is gently, gently. So she certainly believed in discipline, I think, but also maybe not to that extreme. But yeah, she was certainly very, very passionate about education, and I think that that's definitely her greatest legacy. I think the fact that people are still benefiting from her foundations today, I mean, how amazing is that? That's something that you don't even get from someone like Elizabeth, who everyone remembers when they think of the Tudors, you know. And actually that's something I think that is a huge credit to Margaret, and something that she certainly deserves a lot of praise for.
Yeah.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Hi.
I'm new here. Hi. So having studied history, I think one of the big challenges when thinking about historical figures is that we know how their actions worked out in the long term, but at the time they didn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to forget that. And one of the challenges when dealing with someone like Margaret Beaufort is, you know, I think maybe some of that perception of her as the scheming figure in the background all along is that we know how that all worked out, but that wasn't maybe necessarily her end goal from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, so was the question that,
do you think that some of the perceptions of her are shaped by that hindsight knowledge that we have now?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% I do. And you're right, it's such an important point, I think. And it's a similar sort of concept. You know, I get so many people who email me and say, oh my goodness, that's terrible that she was, you know, pregnant at 12, had a baby at 13. And it's just so easy to judge everything from a 21st century perspective, because, you know, we're all like, well, that sounds absolutely horrific, that's terrible. But, you know, back in the 15th century, okay, it wasn't necessarily the norm to consummate marriages at 12, but it wasn't as horrendous as the idea of that sounds today. So yeah, I think definitely that has shaped perceptions of Margaret, and, you know, not just Margaret. But I think that's why it's so important that, you know, not just with Margaret, but with any historical figure, it's why you have to go back to the primary sources, and you have to start by looking at what was said at the time, what there is from the time, you know, what there is relating to that person that was, you know, written by them, that was said by them. And it's only really that way, I think, that you can sort of try and put together a true sense of who they were as a person, you know, away from when you strip away all the centuries and you know, the years of myths and hindsight, really.
I would like to know more about her relationship with Elizabeth of York, and Elizabeth of York just kind of fades away a little bit, but like, what was that what was that like?
Elizabeth of York, I think that they actually got along really, really well, and I think that Margaret had a lot of time for Elizabeth. So I think she certainly was really, really interested in everything that Elizabeth did, and I think, you know, in any relationship, whether it's daughter-in-law and mother-in-law, whether it's mother and son, whether it's husband and wife, all relationships have rocky patches and everyone has disagreements in life. It's perfectly normal. It's just unfortunate for Margaret that you know, in her case, she perhaps had a bit of a glitch with Elizabeth of York. It got written down by the Spanish ambassador, And 400 years, 500 years later, it was being brought up as evidence that she was the mother-in-law from hell. And, you know, I think actually, I mean, listen, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm sure as a mother-in-law, Margaret could have been a nightmare at times. I'm sure she was completely overbearing, and she probably did get on Elizabeth's nerves from time to time. If there's someone, you know, in close proximity to you and your husband nearly 24/7, then they're bound to annoy you from time to time, right? But I think if Elizabeth had been had a similar kind of personality to Margaret, so she'd been sort of more outgoing, then I think they would have clashed heads more. But Elizabeth was, you know, so the contemporary sources say, of a gentler disposition, and so I think she was quite happy to have Margaret there. And I think in some ways probably Margaret was a great support for Elizabeth. And you know, yeah, Margaret was certainly really fond of Elizabeth, and hugely fond of her grandchildren. We know that they worked together on occasion to petition Henry VII, that they founded a chantry chapel together. And would they have done all those things if they hadn't got along, really? No, I don't think so. Like I said, I personally think it's just unfortunate for them that perhaps they got caught on a day when maybe they weren't getting along together so well. And, you know, it's natural, isn't it? But I think it's been blown out of all proportion. And as I say, I genuinely think that they got along quite well.
And then what about her relationship with her grandchildren? Because that was something that I hadn't really read that much about before, her closeness with, I had heard the story about keeping Margaret from going to Scotland, but yeah, tell me more about her relationship with all of them.
She absolutely loved her grandchildren. Margaret was at heart a family woman, and she loved her family. She loved the idea of having her grandchildren around her and close to her. I think she was particularly close to Prince Arthur and Princess Margaret, so the eldest two. But it is really sweet when you go through her account books and you see all these really touching glimpses of the way that she bought presents for them and the way that she treated them. You know, so she was buying clothes for Arthur and for Henry, which I think is quite sweet. She was buying jewelry for Margaret and Henry. When Henry started learning to joust, it was Margaret who bought him his first jousting saddle. And I think that's really touching, and she very clearly did absolutely dote on these children. And, you know, again, I think also the fact that she was a godmother to two of her grandchildren, so Margaret, of course, her namesake, and the short-lived Prince Edmund, who was also her godson. And I think he was also styled Duke of Somerset as well, which was the hereditary title of Margaret's father. So I think that was a very personal thing for her. And yeah, she was, to all accounts, a very, very doting and loving grandmother. And it's just very frustrating because we don't know a lot about how they felt about her in return. But I don't know, I'd like to think that they were a very close-knit family. And, you know, we have to consider that when Elizabeth of York died in 1503, suddenly Margaret was the closest living female relative that these poor motherless children had. And so I think that they probably would have relied on her quite heavily at that time. And, you know, and she would have, I think, probably provided them with a lot of emotional support. So, and I think they would have come to know her quite well because, as I say, she was this kind of permanent fixture at court to begin with for the early years of their lives. So yeah, I think that she certainly wouldn't have been a distant figure.
It must have been so nice for her after, like, the first part of her life, the major part of her life, not having roots and not having her family and not having, like, I would just want to hang out with my kid all the time too if I could. Like,
Yeah, it's understandable, isn't
it
it?
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's completely understandable, I think. I totally get why she was there all the time. And again, I think that that's something else that that's kind of neglected. You know, you have to put it into context and look at it in the bigger picture. And yes, she was there a lot of the time, but why was that? You know, she hadn't seen this son for nearly 15 years. And again, you know, she hadn't spent a lot of time with him when he was growing up. Of course, she wants to be a part of that family. Of course, she wants to be close to him. And of course, she wants to make up for lost time in some way. So, you know, I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she had him so young, there wasn't so much of an age difference. Like, they could have
That's
talked
true.
more like equals as well. Like, she was less than 40 or something then when he became, I haven't done the math, but yeah.
Yeah. So I had to think about that for a moment as well. Yeah, she was less than 40. So yeah, exactly. So there is this very small age gap between them as well. But I really think that they were like the best of friends. And I just think it's really, really extraordinary and a testament as well to the sort of person that Margaret was and the impact that she had on his life. The fact that they hadn't spent time together, and then it didn't even matter. They got together and it was like they'd never been apart. And, you know, I think it's very rare, I think, that you find something like that, and it's lovely.
And then her nursing him on his deathbed, like that
Yeah.
was really so sad. After she spent her whole life trying to protect him, then she couldn't. Like, I kind of had to tear up while I was reading about that.
And it is really sad, isn't it? That sudden realization that this person who, you know, your whole life has centered around keeping this one person safe, and then recognizing that actually the one thing that you can't keep them safe from is death, and you've got no control over that. There's nothing you can do to change that, and it's going to happen. And I think that must have, I think that must have been completely and utterly heartbreaking for Margaret. And yeah, especially so because I think she was a bit of a control freak in some ways. So yeah, the idea that there's no amount of money you can throw at this to make it better, or there's no amount of influence or contacts who can improve this situation for you. It is what it is. And yeah, I think that was pretty unbearable for her.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to throw in? I'd love to know, like, how, like Lisa said, that this book changed her opinion of Lady Margaret. If it's for anybody else, like, I'd love to know too, what impact or how it changed your view, if it changed your view.
What I'd like to just say to that quickly, if I may, is that writing the book actually changed my view as well, because when I approached writing the book, I mean, you have to come to everything from an objective viewpoint, but you can't help but have these, you know, perceptions in the back of your mind about the White Queen and whatever, and so you do kind of want to know, well, is that true? Is that real? But I was so shocked when I started delving into Margaret's life and I started researching her, and I just felt like this whole other Margaret emerged from the one that I'd previously read about, or the one that I'd seen on screen. And I think it was such a privilege to be able to tell her story and to be able to delve into all that material. And I think we're so lucky, actually, that for a woman of that period, annoyingly, of course, there are frustrating gaps in the source material, but actually there is a huge amount of material available for Margaret's life. And I just think that that's absolutely extraordinary for a woman at this time. And I'm so grateful for that, because if we didn't have that, then maybe we would still be having the whole mother-in-law from hell perception looming over us, and we wouldn't be able to get any closer to the real Margaret. But you know, actually, thanks to this stuff, we can. And yeah, so it's great. So it definitely, I was really, really surprised by how I felt about Margaret by the end of the book, and it was a really nice surprise.
That's cool. There's a Facebook group called the Deconstruction of Lady Margaret Beaufort, and
really,
yeah, and it's like,
I didn't know that.
they're all out. It's just to like repaint Lady Margaret Beaufort as so. Yeah, it's anyway. You should post about your book in there anyway. So I interrupted. Somebody else was talking. Sorry.
It's all right. I just wanted to note on the mother-in-law from hell, like jump off that for a second. If we really think about it, how much time did Elizabeth's mother really spend preparing her to be rule, or to work with her as a queen consort? Because in reality, the expectation for Elizabeth's mother was it was going to be one of her sons. There was never a consideration that her daughter would be the one that was queen consort, or we can get into that argument later, but that she was going to be the one that had to have that training and knowledge. And her mom had a lot of children, and so I mean, if we really think about it, maybe Margaret was just filling that role because Elizabeth of York may not have known how to do it, because her mom may not have had all that knowledge, and then maybe didn't have time to share it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a really, really interesting point, and a very fair point. I mean, we don't know how much time, or how many conversations the mother and daughter did have together about preparing Elizabeth for this role. But I also think that it was made very clear to Elizabeth when she married Henry VII that her role was very much as Henry's wife and as a supporter. And I think that was part of the reason why her coronation was delayed for 2 years, because I think that it was about 18 months after they were married. I think it was very much because it was important for Henry that he established himself as as king in his own right, independent of Elizabeth. And I think that she was then sort of crowned later when he felt kind of a bit more secure, if you like. And but it was very much done with, like, if you look at accounts of Elizabeth's coronation and all of the celebrations that were staged, everything was everything was done, all of the symbolism was done with an eye to Henry. And so it was very sort of clear that she was expected to fulfill the role of his wife and as mother to his children, but as nothing else. She was expected to be seen and not heard. So I think who knows, maybe she would have liked to have spoken up more and had more of a role in things. I don't know, but I suspect that was kind of very much part of the deal on Henry's side, as after Bosworth was, I'm king, you're my wife, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to be conscious of the fact that you said you wanted to go by 7:45 your time, Nicola.
If anyone's got any more questions, I'm very happy to sit and answer more questions.
What are you working on next, Nicola?
I'm doing 2 things at the moment. One is called Project X, and I'm not allowed to talk about Project X.
Okay.
But that's going to be quite a while away. That's I'm just trying to think. It is a while away. That's not going to be until probably the end of 2023. But I'm also working on turning my PhD into a book. So,
okay.
Which is quite exciting. So yeah, I'm working on something else called All the Queen's Jewels, which is about the jewellery collections of the Yorkist and early Tudor queens. So Margaret pops up a bit there as well, and lots more about Elizabeth of York as well. So that's where I think I've got these ideas about Elizabeth's role as Henry's wife, because I've done a lot of research on how she was seen by her contemporaries, how Henry wanted her to be viewed, how she wanted to view herself. So so that's what I'm working on at the moment, which is really fun. So I'm having a great time with that.
The jewelry book sounds fabulous.
Do you know,
that will be good.
I hope so. I'm really excited about it.
That will be good. Yes.
Hopefully. So that will be, I don't know. I mean, everything that's going on at the moment has kind of thrown things a bit up in the air. So I think originally that was going to be scheduled for next year. I don't know. It was probably more likely 2022 now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exciting.
I did have a question, if my mic's working.
Yeah.
Oh, goody. Okay. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about Margaret's contributions to education, about the number and the type of people that this would have affected first. I know that it became huge eventually, but what did it look like originally? Thank you.
Originally, we were looking at so it would have just been men that her foundations were accessible to. I have to say actually that Margaret's educational patronage didn't just extend to Christ's and St John's in Cambridge. We know that she had what were called the children of her chapel at her palace at Colley Weston as well, which was her main residence towards the end of Henry VII's reign, and she paid for all of these children. I think there were about 30 of them, and she paid for all of these children to have an education as well. We also know that she was funding the education of other youngsters and supporting other scholars as well, because there's the odd reference to this in her account books. But to start with, at the colleges, the footprint would have been relatively small and just men, and obviously sort of the cult of that, not the cult, but that sort of that grew after her death, really. So within her lifetime, because like I say, Christ was only founded in 1505, so 4 years before her death. So we're looking at, I think probably about, I don't know off the top of my head, to be honest, and I don't even know if there's an exact record, but I would say probably between 30 and 50 people at a time. So that's, that approximately. But as I say, she was also, contributing to the education of others within her circle and, others within her estates and her networks. So I think we can safely say that she did certainly make a difference to a lot of people's lives where education was concerned, and certainly these children of the chapel were being given this fantastic opportunity to be educated in her household, which is unlikely that they would have got otherwise. So again, another important but often overlooked aspect, I think, of Margaret's patronage and her generosity as well. I'm sorry I can't be a bit more specific about the numbers at the universities. I don't think, I've certainly never come across any exact records of that.
No, that was pretty great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Any other questions for Nicola?
And I don't know how much time you have left, but Princes in the Tower blame? What the crap?
How do we miss that?
Favorite subject.
I mean, it's one of those, she gets lumped in as a murderer, as a murderess, I suppose, out of almost nothing other than somebody said she might have been involved in a rescue. Am I thinking about that fairly?
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's right. And I think, do you know the thing that just really irritates me about this is that I don't know, it's really irritating. I just feel like whether you like Margaret or you loathe her, you have to be objective about it. And I think, and I feel exactly the same about Richard III. And I get so many people who come along to my talks and are you know, great fans of Richard, whatever, that's fine, and think that Margaret's the devil. But then if you dare to criticize Richard III, people jump down your throat and say, how dare you, that's not on. But they feel it's perfectly acceptable to do that to Margaret. So I just don't get it. I think you have to be fair to both sides. Don't take it. Don't dish it out if you can't take it back. And I think there's no way on earth that Margaret was responsible for the disappearance of the princes in the tower, the murder of the princes in the tower, whichever way you want to look at it. And yeah, like you say, the evidence is really really sketchy, unfortunately, but there is some hint that she was involved in a rescue attempt soon after they were both incarcerated in the tower. But otherwise, you know, any other suggestion that she was in any way involved, I think, is ludicrous. Because did she have motive? Arguably so. But opportunity, I think, certainly not. So, yeah, I think that's a really, really unfair slur on her character. And it's just, I don't know. In my opinion, it's just based on nothing, and it's really is laughable.
And if I understand the rescue, I'm sorry, I'm a little blurry in my brain on it.
Okay.
That's not when she got in trouble. It was Edward that she got in trouble with when she went on house arrest. That wasn't this, right? She didn't even get in trouble for trying to rescue the princes.
She was placed under house arrest by Richard a bit later for her involvement in the Buckingham Rebellion. Okay. So yeah, first there's this unsuccessful attempt to rescue the princes from the tower, and then very shortly afterwards there's the Buckingham Rebellion, whereby Margaret joined forces with the Duke of Buckingham, who had become disaffected from Richard, and that was all discovered. It all went very badly wrong. Buckingham was executed, and Margaret was placed under house arrest under the custody of her then husband, Thomas Stanley. So yeah, so ever so slightly later.
It all gets jumbled in my brain.
I know, yeah, it was the same that was the part of the book that I got really confused with a few times when I was reading it, because there's all these different accounts and you're trying to work out exactly what happened, and it can get super confusing. So but yeah, she certainly wasn't Richard's greatest fan.
Well, blame.
Yeah, I've always wondered if some of the reason she gets blamed with the princes in the tower is just good old-fashioned basic misogyny.
Well, I mean, it's a fair point. I think I feel like she is in some ways, you know, for people who don't believe that Richard III was responsible for her disappearance, I think Margaret is in many ways a convenient alternative. But as I say, I'd love to, well, I feel like I have heard the evidence, but I'd love to hear more about it. If, you know, if there are people out there who really truly think that Margaret was responsible, because I haven't heard. And don't get me wrong, you know, if I heard something that convinced me, I'm very open to changing my opinion, but I just can't see it at all somehow. It just doesn't add up to me. And I think also, you know, she was a hugely religious woman as well, and there's nothing in her accounts later in her life that suggests that she was trying to do any kind of penance or make up for any kind of great sin that she had committed earlier in her life. And I don't know, I just can't see it from what I know of her. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'd love to we should have a great debate about it, you know, like we should we should get Matt Lewis involved. I know he'd.
Yeah, Matt Lewis would have. Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be a great thing to set up.
There's the debate for TutorCon 2021 after Rebecca this year.
Yeah, we should do it. We should definitely do a great debate on that. It's
Yeah, no, this year, actually, Melissa, you know what? Rebecca has had to pull out. She's got some personal things going. She's still going to talk, but we're going to have a debate on Tom Seymour between Janet Wertman and Rebecca Larson, because Rebecca Larson's a blogger who loves Tom Seymour. Janet Wertman like hates Tom Seymour. So we were going to have like a trial. Did Tom actually kill the dog? Yay or nay? And
is that
like,
actually what it was called?
I've just got an email from Rebecca today saying that she had some stuff going on and she wasn't sure if it, so I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be canceled, but
no worries. Maybe we can do it next year then. It'd be more fun in person anyway. To see
I know, that's what I said
faces.
too. I said, don't stress about it. It would be more fun because then we can divide, if you believe this
room.
It'd be so much fun.
We can make little badges or something. Team Tom or Team Dog or
yes, Team Dog.
Oh, that's a debate to watch.
Nicola, thank you so much for being here. I know we're kind of running on your time. I thank you for writing your book. Thank you for your research. Thank you for sharing your work with us and for taking the time. So does anybody else have any other questions? If not, we can let you go.
It's to Matthew and the kids.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to be getting married next year, so.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you so much. I'll tell him that you sent your love. Thank you. It's been such a huge pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So many great questions.
All right, awesome. I'll see you.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to see you.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
And if anybody else wants to stay on and chat some more about her, I still have a little bit of time.
I wondered if, Heather, can we all go to April's house and try on tiaras?
Her crowns, I know.
Yeah, I think that's where we should meet.
I think so.
Oh, she does. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's your way.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's what we should do. We'll just go there wherever you live and we'll try them.
Beautiful.
I'm on the other side of Pennsylvania from TutorCon.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm near Pittsburgh, but yeah, it's a disease. I've got it's a disease.
Next year for TutorCon, will you bring them and
there you go.
Sell them or just share them or whatever you want to do? But like, we need to be part of this somehow.
She could rent them out to us.
You could.
You can laugh at me. I ordered this one.
Invite everybody to bring their own.
So I ordered this one.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is a fairly recognizable one. This is the Tudor Love or the Tudor. The Windsor Love Knot. I accidentally ordered it twice.
Oh, how sad.
It's in 2 different sizes.
That's awesome.
Heather, would you please repeat what you said about the 2 authors who were interested in Tom Seymour? Who were they?
Okay. Yeah. So Janet Wertman.
Oh, Janet Wertman.
Yeah. She is very pro Edward Seymour, pro the execution of Tom and all of that. And then Rebecca Larson, she has a blog called Tudor's Dynasty and also a podcast. And she has been a longtime fan of Tom's. And she's going to be talking at TutorCon this year about Tom. And they were going to have this live debate going back and forth between them. And I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen right now. But anyway, she's very pro Tom. So, and she's apparently got a biography of him coming out, though I'm not sure when it's coming out.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And I just wanted to say hello to everybody. I'm new. I'm Julie, and I live in Canada, and I've studied Tudor history. So thank you for the invitation to the book club. It was really interesting. As I mentioned to you, Heather, I haven't read the book yet, but it's on my list. So that's why I really wasn't saying anything, but it was fascinating. Awesome. And I'm coming to TutorCon virtually, so hopefully I'll put something there.
Have so much fun. Awesome.
Yeah. I just want to know where the person, and I apologize, I didn't see the screen, who came up with that idea on perhaps Margaret getting blamed for the Death of the Princess in the Tower was misogyny.
I've never
Because
heard
I
of that.
spent 2 hours last night trying to come up with a topic for my women in gender history class. So it's a difficult topic.
So that was me. I'm also new. So hi, Julie, fellow newbie. I'm glad that helped. I also
sneak it in there.
Yeah, I also studied Tudor history back in college, way back in the early 90s. So totally dating myself here. So I was really happy to find out about this and looking forward to TudorCon.
Yay. Do you want to say a quick hi? Hannah wants to say a quick hi real quick. She's been very patiently waiting. All right.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
I love that.
Hi,
Is that
Hannah.
a dress or a shirt that she's wearing? I love
it's
it.
a shirt.
All sparkly.
Yep, she's very sparkly.
I love it.
How's school going, Hannah?
Hey, oh, I really like that.
Hey, you should, April, can you show one of your crowns to Hannah real quick?
Oh, sure,
April
sure.
makes-
You know what you're going to have to do, Heather? You're going to be buying crowns now.
No.
And it's only fair.
Aren't they pretty? Look at that.
We know you want one.
Next year at TudorCon, she might bring them and we can look at them, huh? That would be fun.
This one is probably about your size, sweetheart.
It's all about the shiny.
Yeah.
All right, you go in with Daddy. I'll be in a couple minutes.
And I'm more of a gold person, okay?
Oh,
Your wing. How's that? Is that
She's
going
a
enough?
little- Hannah, you're missing one. There's a beautiful gold.
Oh.
Oh, come on. She's racing back now. All right, wait,
Yes,
one more time,
yes.
April.
Come back. This is the good one.
Oh, look at that one. With
Show
the
us,
pretty-
April. You're gonna talk, girl. Make it the big screen.
Yeah, yeah, April, you gotta say something. There you go.
Here it is. It's gold and red with sea pearls and black.
All right. All right, you go in with Daddy. I'll be in soon. Okay, sorry about that.
It's so cute.
She had to-
Can I borrow her? I've got 9, but you know, I need 10.
Okay.
How's school
Sure,
going for
she's
you
been
guys, Heather?
homeschooling since March, so you can borrow her.
Oh, I had to do that for a week and a half, and no.
She starts back on Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I'm driving my kids back and forth, my grandkids, to school because I think the school bus is like a.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She goes to.
And I'm really worried. I'm even worried being in the car with them, but gotta live.
Yeah, no, that would be worrying. She goes to a little Montessori school, and there's only 8 kids in her whole class, and they do half their time outside anyway.
Well,
So
that's something, yeah.
I'm
but
all right with
still.
that.
Yeah,
here
my,
we're-
Until December, so.
my sister's a teacher and I'm pretty worried about her.
My daughter's a teacher and I'm terrified. But anyway, she's
Yeah.
volunteered to do the virtual teaching. So although she's in the school, she doesn't have a class full of kids.
Oh, that's good.
I
Here
want
in
to tell
Spain,
you,
we didn't have an option. Homeschooling here is illegal in Spain, so they can actually
in
take your kid away
Spain.
from you.
no
Yeah.
wonder that always says not something Madrid time.
Yeah. Because I'm
going
in
to say
Spain.
that.
Yeah, because they see it here as neglect if you don't send your kids to school, and so they can actually take.
Well,
them
we
from-
did here for a long time. I mean, when my kids were little, it was very hard to.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, I make lace, bobbin lace,
Okay.
and I happen to have a whole book of patterns for crowns in the next room. Next time you see me,
That's awesome.
King
It's-
Christian
it's-
the IV. I don't know what period he was,
everywhere.
but
You need them. Were you working on lace while we were talking? Yep.
this was known as bone lace in Elizabeth's time.
Oh wow, that's
Did
so
you see it?
cool.
Well, these are Midland. You know, they didn't show up till Victorian times, but they're fun. They're fun, sort of like jewels for lace makers. Yeah.
The first time I saw you on camera, I at first thought you were cheering something somebody said, because you kind of didn't, and then I realized it was you pulling the string.
Well, I really enjoy listening to all of you. You're all so well informed. I was nuts about Tudor England, you know, in high school and college, but there weren't any classes in it. And you all know so much. I'm really impressed.
Oh. Thank you for being here and
I
for
love it.
being part of it.
Very lucky.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Do we have anything else?
Excited for next month. I mean,
Yeah.
bring on TutorCon. I am so excited.
I know. I'm so, you guys, I was so bummed that we had to cancel it. And I spent all summer just kind of, I knew I wanted to do something for you guys who had bought tickets for in person. And I was just kind of like putting off planning it because I was like, it was a reminder of how depressing it was that this year stinks so bad. But then I started planning it and then I thought, well, hang on, like no offense to you guys, but like, why am I doing it for just like 40 or 50 people? We could get lots of people and we could get entertainment and we could get, so then like the Digital Renaissance Fair people got involved and they started recommending some different performers. And so we've got performers from all over the place and it's going to be so cool. And the Woo Master, I'll tell you guys this is a secret. The costume contest winner, the prize is an original piece of artwork by the Woo Master that he's going to send you himself. So if that's
I have no Elizabethan costumes. Can I just come in my crown? I mean, I'll be clothes otherwise.
I don't know. It is the Woo Master. I'm just saying.
You guys who don't know who the Woo Master is, although I don't think he's going to be doing Woo Master cat character.
Oh, just explain it anyway.
He's an actor who's very handsome and talks with a Scottish accent, which is a very good Scottish accent, and he has a sword.
Is his name Jamie?
Very, very big sword.
Yeah.
Is his name Jamie?
No.
Close enough. Close enough.
Heather, when is the costume competition? Is it the first evening or how
The
does that
first,
work?
yeah, because we'd be having our real life party. So it's during the, so what I'm going to do is open up with a chance for people who want to show themselves on camera can do that. Otherwise, we'll have a thread where you can post your pictures of the details and stuff like that. And we'll do that to start with. And then throughout the evening, people can go in and look at the thread, and then we'll have a poll at the very end.
And then we can just be spectators if we want to.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you can get in your jammies or whatever.
Yeah. Mine is very homemade. It's just for fun. I'm not, trying to win, but a friend of mine heard I signed up and she said, oh, I have a dress I bought for my daughter. I'll send it to you. It's just a sort of a cotton dress, but she did buy it at a Renaissance fair sometime. But I was just curious. I've invested in a jeweled headband from Amazon, all of $8. So stand by.
That's
I
where
used
the
to have
addiction
18th
starts.
century clothing, but that won't float.
Yeah,
You
I
guys are
actually
gonna
got.
be way more dressed up than me. I'm just going to be in my pajamas freaking out about the internet going down. So that's,
We actually had last year, there were some time travelers that weren't from Elizabethan England. So don't feel limited by 17th, 18th, any century. There were
Time travel. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
We
part
had
of the
folks
fun.
in kilts and stuff all the way up to present day clothing. And we went further back than Henry's time and everywhere in between.
yeah.
I actually got married in Renaissance costume way back when.
Wow.
Do I want to see pictures someday?
I'll have to see if I can find some and scan them because this was before digital photography.
I don't even know how I found out about this Tudor Learning Circle, but I'm sure glad I stumbled on it. And now I can't wait until we have a Ren Fair again and I can go see one because I've never been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, last year was the
Ours,
first.
and I'm kind of concerned about it.
Yeah.
This year?
I'm in
Yeah, we have-
Minnesota, and we have one of the biggest Renaissance festivals in the country. My husband and I actually do information booth stuff, so
Who's
we joke.
talking? Oh, that's Melissa. Okay.
No, that was
Um,
Margaret.
Yeah, that was Mark.
Yep. And
Margaret, did you say you're from Sarasota?
No, Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and we like to joke that it's literally our job to tell people where to go at the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, I can't believe I've never been to one. I, studied Tudor history, been interested in them all these years, but of course, and I don't know if we have any in Canada, but I could easily have come down to Pennsylvania or something, just never
I just
done
had an idea that they were totally fictitious and anachronistic and.
They are.
Well,
And they're not.
Renaissance fairs are, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted TutorCon to be like a mix between like, because I love Renaissance fairs, but every time I go to a Renaissance fair, I'm all frustrated because like none of it's right. And so I thought, why don't we have something where we're actually having the fun and costumes and all the music and all the cool stuff about a Renaissance fair, and actually like having talks and learning and having it be authentic. So that's why I created TutorCon, to be a mixture of a Renaissance fair and an academic conference.
Sounds like you were once upon a time a reenactor.
No,
because that seriously is an illness that we get into. It
is 100%
accurate.
We called it Farby in my realm of reenactment. Everything that was not accurate was Farby.
Farby, yeah. Far be it from me.
I want you to know, Heather, when I came home from TutorCon last year, and my husband thought it was a traditional academic conference, and so he was very confused when I was talking about, like, we had this welcome party and there was these games and there was alcohol and there was, you know, and the costumes and everything. He's like, you just went to a Ren fair, that's all you did. I said, no. And then he went back and talked to, my husband is also an academic, he teaches anthropology, and so when he went back to his advisors and stuff and was telling them about this conference, they were just floored that, first of all, that the history department people could come up with something that brilliant, but second of all, that, you know, they hadn't come up with it first, and they said that was the most brilliant way to get people to come to a conference, was to make it fun and then have the talks on the side.
Whoever thought of that?
They need to get in touch with me and I can plan their conferences for them instead of just figuring it all out on my own.
Well, there's no conferences now, but when it happens, you know, I'll let them know.
Yeah.
You know, Heather, I know I'm brand new and all, but I actually also have spent many years volunteering with a local to me science fiction convention. Okay. So if you want someone to just talk with about conference planning, or you just bounce ideas off or whatever, definitely feel free to hit me up.
Cool. Yeah, when I worked in libraries, I planned the California Library Association conference pretty much.
That wouldn't be that much fun.
What?
That would
no, it was great. I was, because I was me and I was making things. We had bubble machines and laser lights.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not like that's not like they were in the day, I guess.
No.
Good. But we did have alcohol. That was the same.
So I will definitely, I'm not even going to say I might, I will definitely, as we get closer to the next in-person one, I will definitely hit you up for some chat on that, Margaret.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Awesome.
Well, this has been wonderful. I have to leave. I have actually a company coming for dinner. Unusual these days, I know, but just a friend whose birthday it is. So I have to get moving. But thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I guess we'll just call it a day for us all here. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the group?
It was great to meet everyone. Thanks for being so welcoming.
Great to meet everybody.
And I enjoyed this little bonus bit.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Bye.
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 Happy Sunday, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.